You just described a typical day. How would that change if it was to be one of those really great days? It's like, wow, that was a really good day. What type of day would be like, yep, that was a fantastic day,
Oh,
if at all?
sure. I think I'm trying to think of a couple of days where I just was like, wow. So one, when I was in Washington State and I was a site HR person, 3 times a year during the summertime they hold a barbecue
Hmm.
during lunchtime and it spills in a little bit later. Um, Everybody is so excited. It's a potluck. Like everybody brings food. We give a little money. A couple of the guys would cook the food. Like these are catering chef level guys. They would cook the barbecue. Just the whole atmosphere of the office. Everybody is just so excited and happy.
Wow.
Like that's a good day. Not because people are still working.
Mm,
Maybe just to be frank, I mean, maybe the output is a little less on that
mm,
day,
mm,
but people are happy to be at the workplace. And when
mm,
people are happy, oh, then it's so easy to work.
mm.
It's, like I said, when the fires are there, that's when it's like, oof,
I'm curious, at those barbecues, do they serve alcohol?
no
Right.
alcohol.
Okay.
The company I work for doesn't
Mm.
sponsor that.
But I guess, so what you're saying, in a sense, everyone essentially gets along well. So if you were to hold a barbecue like that, people will have fun
Yeah,
and
but
get
even people that maybe have some tension between them or different departments, it brings everybody together. And I think that's the rewarding part of HR, right? Is you get to see everybody, you get to know everybody, you know what pushes and what brings out the best in people, what brings out the worst in people, what everybody's different circumstances are, but only you know.
Mm,
So you can kind of highlight other things,
mm,
right?
mm,
So, another plus time, like a great day would be like when maybe after coaching a manager
mhm,
for weeks
mhm.
about his behavior, how he interacts with his team, you go to a staff meeting and then suddenly the team, like they're engaged and they're having a great conversation. And then later the team says, from talking to them one-on-one, yeah, I don't know what happened, but like, yeah, there was a great meeting, or they leave feeling encouraged or invigorated or ready to work. It's like, oh, wow, that's good.
So your coaching of that manager had a good effect.
Yeah,
So then it benefited his
exactly.
staff
Because you can see
or her
the
staff.
results of your hard work.
Right, right. Oh wow. Okay, so you touched on it with the mentioning of the fires, but how would that change if it turned out to be one of those really crappy days? Like, damn, that day really sucked. What would cause that to happen?
Yeah. So kind of mentioned it before, the biggest fire, right? The slow burning
Mm,
inferno when you have to do like 7, 8 layoffs in one day, or
mm,
um, it's not just the layoffs and it's not just the individuals.
mm,
Like that sucks,
mm.
but the the aftershock of that group, of the people, that whole site, you have to manage all of that. And the question is, well, is there more? Am I next? Who else is there?
Mm,
There's a
mm.
fear, right? Everybody
Like the
doesn't
morale just hits rock bottom.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's probably the hardest days.
I think we've covered this already, but just wondering if in case you've got anything further to add. If I was to ask you, what do you love about your job? You sort of touched on it, but if you were to summarize it in a sentence or two.
So definitely the people,
Hmm.
but I mean,
As
based
in,
on
you like the people, you like interacting with the people.
no, I've always enjoyed learning. I've always really loved getting to know people
Hmm.
and understanding where they came from, their backgrounds, how did they end up where they are. That's just something that I always enjoyed. But where I am right now in my life, I really love learning about the business. I
Right.
love talking to the managers and understanding, how they're trying to meet their goals or their profit margins, and how they're not, um, how the different functions are working and how they work together. Like that for me, it's kind of like a NBA part two.
Well, I was going to say that sort of. I can now understand why you would have considered a consulting role early in your career, because obviously you can do that in a HR capacity,
Yeah,
but that's effectively what management consultants do. Of course, depending on what your focus is, but
actually, I got an offer. I interviewed for a consulting company.
uh-huh.
Like, I think one of the big five, right?
Yep.
And I got the offer
Wow.
in human capital consulting.
Uh-huh.
And I had to choose between this multinational company and this consulting company.
Oh.
And at the end of the day, I chose the multinational company because from talking to everybody, it was just so much more in depth. Like
Wow.
the knowledge base, I talked to HR people and I didn't know they were HR people.
Wow.
I thought they were the commercial leaders. I thought they were the service
Okay.
leaders. I was like, and then later, like literally months later, I'm like, so where are the HR people? Like, what are you talking about? I really had no clue. But then I spoke to the consulting
Right.
agencies, like this firms, like people.
Hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, Friday we go out and drink. Oh yeah, you have to really fight hard to get your next job. I'm like, this is like an MBA part 2. Like, I don't want that.
Right.
But 2 years in this company, I could probably go anywhere
Wow.
because that's just
2 years in that
this
management consulting role.
company,
Right.
because that's how consulting companies work, right?
Mm.
2 years, you either go up to a partner or you don't, and then you move on. So, and they paid a lot more. So,
Okay. Well, but that would have been a good dilemma to have 2 great job offers.
it was a dilemma.
Wow.
It was a dilemma.
Wow, that's very impressive. Okay, so then if I was to flip it, and once again, you have mentioned it, but if you were to summarize in a sentence or 2, what do you hate about your job? What would that be, if anything?
A human resource job can become very transactional, meaning just processing, going through emails, doing the same thing over and over and over. If you aren't engaged with people, it can easily become very repetitive. And I think I feel fortunate because that's one of the things we're trying to steer away from in the company I'm at.
From my perspective, I was thinking if I was to put myself in your shoes, it seems like a potentially very stressful job. Having to deal with people, hearing about people's problems.
Yeah.
Effectively, you are becoming their shoulder to lean on a lot of the time, I'm guessing.
So this sounds horrible, but I've had more women cry in my office than I've actually had women cry in front of me in my private life.
That's what I'm saying. Like you have to handle these situations.
But it's funny. So 4 years in nonprofits plus, right?
Oh.
And the type of people I was working with were homeless. A lot of them had substance abuse histories or mental illnesses. The worst employment situation I've ever had to do was I had to evict a family, low-income family who hadn't paid rent for a year in a low-income housing unit, which was like barely a couple $100 a month. But we had to evict them because they couldn't pay, or they hadn't been paying.
Oh, gee, that's
and then literally moving all their luggage into a storage, their furniture, everything into a storage unit. The rest of it that didn't fit, leaving it out on the curb. Having the locksmith come change the lock after we kicked them out. Like, and that was a family of 4, parents and 2 kids. That was difficult. Literally, that compared to telling somebody that I'm so sorry you're going to lose your employment, but you're very talented and skilled and you can probably find a job somewhere else pretty fast. The scales are completely different.
Right.
So not to say that it's not important, somebody laid off or having their difficulties at the workplace, but it's like you have a job.
So I guess to maybe flip it around another way, your experiences has given you training in emotionally charged situations.
Yes.
So that you are well equipped to deal with a lot, I guess, relatively what I would see as a emotionally horrendous situation to you in the grand scheme of things. You're thinking you need to empathize and things like that. And you know how to handle these situations thanks to your training and experience and things like that. So hence that makes you an ideal human resources manager to flip it around. Do you like that? I think I really mean that. It sort of makes sense how your experiences have led you to where you are and how that helps you do your job very well.
So I only have 4 years of HR experience formally, or 4.5 plus my internship. But technically I feel like I have another 4 years from the nonprofit because that's all I did was people management, right?
And that makes sense.